Hey traders, Michael or Mini Frost here. You're here for another episode of Common Sense Market Analysis. Today is Monday, August 4th, 2025. You're looking at a daily chart of the SPY or spiders, which is the proxy for the S&P 500. What do we have on the docket today? Well, we had a lot of stuff happen between last Friday and today. On Friday, we had a nice sizable gap and crap situation. She gapped down almost 60 S&P handles. She spiked the trend line that we've been talking about for the last few weeks. And then what'd she do today? Well, she did the exact opposite of what she did on Friday. She had a gap and go. Today was a floater Monday, had a nice little gap higher this morning, and then she pretty much just floated them up the entire day. Take note that today we recovered back above the trend line. The trend line is the bull case scenario, and guess what? She also closed above the 20-period moving average. All in all, that's a very bullish behavior day that we had today. Recovered the trend line, recovered back above the 20-period moving average, but puzzle piece information is that we did not, and I repeat, did not fill this gap from last Thursday coming in at 632.08. Today's high was 631.22. So now the question becomes, are we going to go ahead and fill this gap and complete the unfinished business? Or is she going to want to run for a retest of the 20-period moving average and or possibly the trend line again? Just looking at it in an hourly perspective, although she did spike the trend line, as you could see, towards the end of the day, the last 2 hourly candles of the day, she touched the trend line but wasn't able to close candles above it. She touched it at the end of the day for a reason. She was trying to fight back above it. What that reason is, we don't know, nor do we need to know. The only thing that matters is that trend line is important. So staying above it is the bull case scenario. But she could do a few things tomorrow. She can go and complete the unfinished business at the gap, coming in at 632, give or take. But then what does she want to do after completing that unfinished business? Is she going to want to go climb higher and try to climb this big time breakdown candle high? That could be a possibility. Or could it be we fill the gap, get rejected, and then go back down to retest some important areas, such as the 20-period moving average and the trend line? Also, not to mention the midpoint between the two. This is now considered a breakup candle, and we know that markets like to go run tests of the most recent breakup candle low or breakdown candle high, either or. It just so happens that the candle next to it, Friday's candle, the gap and crap situation, is a breakdown candle. So we got a lot of stuff in this vicinity right here. Let's take a quick intermission break and take a look at the Lazy Swing Trader Automagical Algo system. Today, she sent members a profit target alert for TJX. This was the second profit target on the board, and now we have a nice little 6.35% gain on the trade. Here was the entry alert. Absolutely no heat. She spiked it by a few cents, but pretty much nailed it right on the dot. How does she know? We could give that one a funny how that works. Not to mention, this is going to be the last week of the Lazy Swing Trader promotion that we have going on. We have a deal for the quarterly plan, and then we also have a nice little deal for the annual plan. You get a discount, you get the magic calculator for a year. That's almost $1,500 in value itself. Some exclusive bonus perks along with the magic calculator, and not to mention, we have an 87% win rate this year. If you scroll down all the way to the bottom, you can see all of our closed swing trades, and just from the looks of it, it looks pretty green. Obviously, we got some red in there. We're not going to win 100% of the trades. That's impossible. Everyone knows that. But the Lazy Swing Trader is definitely performing extremely well. Most traders are literally making their money back within the first trade. Get it while it's still hot. This is the last week of the promotion. We have a ton of new opportunities on the board that are about to hit their entry targets. So if you've been waiting, now is the time. The link will be in the description below. What do we got going on for inside the numbers, starting with the 0 dark 30 stuff? Little side note, the live room was closed today. We might have to shut it down for tomorrow as well, but we'll let you guys know. We'll send out an email update later tonight. Thank you guys for your continued patience. All right, let's jump into it. She never got to any of our support numbers, so we could just forget about that. But the first zone of overhead resistance is at 625.80 to 626.30. Right at the vertical line is today's activity, and as you can see, she spiked right on through. This was a tight overhead resistance zone, so we weren't going to give it a lot of room because the next number up was near 227 and some change. That was a midpoint number. And then we had another zone up above. We'll get to that in a moment. But one thing to note is if we go to the extended hours, this zone did work in the pre-market and did provide a nice little base hit. But when the opening bell rang, she bursted right on through. Alright, so at this point, we're playing some catch up here. Let's scroll up and take a look at the intraday notes. As you can see, next area of overhead resistance is at 628.75 to 629.50. First order of business at overhead resistance is that they stop going in the direction that they're going. A few minutes pass on, she came up short of the front end number, swines. So if we get back up there, I'm willing to let them spike through it and try to get to 629.50. She came up short of the first number, so we were waiting for her to spike on through, trying to get to the 629.50, which she did, and then she played ping pong back and forth between the two levels. So as you could see, this was an important overhead resistance place. And then she started closing candles above 629.50, and what did she do on the way back down? She used it as support. This was definitely an important zone. So we did have traders take a little base hit at the second zone of overhead resistance, as we had to play some catch up from the first one. Pause the video, read the notes, and go back to the charts to double check the work. It's all in here, everything that you need to be a successful trader, trading the S&P, futures, ES, micros, options on the SPY, options on futures. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. We trade it all. We got something for everybody. Let's go ahead and take a look at 𝐾AMP-IWM. She had a nice day today. She's up 2.24%, almost $5. And what I instantly see, a little bit of puzzle piece information, is that we did manage to close this gap right here. The close was 219.39, and today we made a high of 219.74. So we managed to fill the gap in 𝐾AMP-IWM, but we did not manage to fill it in the spiders. Puzzle piece on the table. My number one favorite market leading indicator. So I had this line drawn on the board, 215.93. This was the most recent breakout area. We opened right on it, spiked on through, we spiked below the 50 period moving average, but today we opened back above it and we had a pretty nice strong close. Next destination above is going to be this 20 period moving average, and then she's going to want to work her way back up towards the recent breakdown candle highs. One other thing that I find interesting is right here we have a gap that remains unfilled. The close is 211.77. We made a low right here of 211.89. We did not fill the gap, and she came up short once more, and then pretty much ripped it right back in the other direction. So that definitely is a sign of bullish behavior, especially paired with filling this gap despite the fact that the spiders weren't able to. So next destination above is going to be this 20 period moving average, but that's not to say we can't go back down for some more testing down below. She can go back and run a retest of the 50 period moving average. We're going to need to see some follow through to see what she really wants to do. This could be a one-day wonder type of deal after a large gap and crap down on Friday. So maybe that is the case, but we don't necessarily know. We need to see a little bit of follow through, so only time will tell. Remember, the market is in the stage right now of revealing their true hand. We're kind of smack in the middle of some important areas. What about the folks at the transportation department? She had a nice 1% day. She's up 159 points, and we laid out some key support levels. As you can see, she went ahead and filled this gap down below at 15,100 give or take. Stopped pretty much right on it, and then we had a nice little bounce. So she went and took care of the unfinished business down below. Let's go ahead and clear up some of these lines just for a clearer picture. So where's the next destination that lies above? Well, that's going to be retesting this 50 period moving average, which coincides with the most recent breakdown candle high. So right now we are below 3 out of the 4 moving averages, leaving the last line of defense, the 100 period moving average down below. Haven't really tested it yet. We got down to the midpoint between the 50 and the 100 period moving average. The gap lies at the midpoint between the two numbers. So if we continue to close candles below the 50 period moving average, she's going to want to run a test of the last line of defense, the 100 period moving average, which also falls in line with this big time breakup candle low. So my second favorite market leading indicator appears to be in a more bearish situation compared to my number one favorite market leading indicator, 𝐾AMP-IWM. So we need to close candles above the 50 period moving average if she wants to have a fighting chance. Already down below 3. If we go ahead and take a look at the weekly chart, she got absolutely killed last week. Went down and stopped at the 200 period weekly moving average. So right now she's fighting it. Last line of defense on the weekly chart 20-period moving average coinciding with this big time breakup candle low. That's what we got for the transportation department. What about the Q people? She's up 1.85%. Nice gap and go situation today, rebounding from the previous gap and crap situation that we had on Friday. She fought back above the 20-period moving average, so staying above, the trend is your friend until she throws your shit out the window. And just like the spiders, we did not fill this gap. Gap comes in at 565.01. We'll just call it 565. So both the spiders and the Qs have some unfinished business. So we don't necessarily know if this is going to be a one-day wonder. As traders, we also need to be the umpires calling balls and strikes, looking at both sides of the tape. Just from the looks of it, we did establish price above all the moving averages, so the trend is your friend. We did have a nice rebound from Friday's gap and crap situation. The next destination above is she needs to go ahead and fill this gap at 565. If she misses it and comes back down, that's bearish behavior. That's going to cause the door to open to some lower stuff. We'll have those numbers ready for Inside the Numbers and live room members. So we'll keep an eye out. This is the time where Mrs. Market is trying to reveal her hand. She's trying to be mysterious with it. We had two opposite days on Friday and Monday. We had a gap and crap on Friday, and we had a gap and go today. The market is like a magician. She's playing all these tricks with traders, trying not to reveal her secrets, just like a magician would. A magician doesn't want anyone finding out how they do the trick, so the same thing applies to trading. We are the audience, but as the tricks are going on, we're trying to figure out how the hell she does the tricks. You don't just watch the show. You watch the hands that Mrs. Market gives you, the little puzzle pieces of information. That's why I'm always talking about them, because that little stuff tends to be important. It's what makes up the whole trick that we're trying to figure out. So we just need to keep watching closely, keep putting all the puzzle pieces together to figure out what her true hand is, so that we don't end up falling for the trap. What about the financials, XLF? She's up 1% today, she's up 50 cents, and she reestablished price above the 50-period moving average. And look at what she did. She spiked the low right here. This was the entrance to no man's land. This opened the door towards the gap right here. The gap was at 50.82. She did not get there, but she spiked no man's land, didn't want to go fill this gap, and then she bounced away, closing candles above the 50-period moving average. So now where does that leave us? Well, she can go back to fill this gap, but on the way back up, we have this gap right here at 52.37. That is going to be the next destination. That does fall in line with the 20-period moving average, so getting above that puts us back above all the moving averages, so the trend is your friend, and now we're going to start to work on these highs right here, these breakdown candle highs. But we need to fill this gap towards the upside, reestablish price above the 20-period moving average. If that's not the case, she's going to want to go back down, take out these lows, and then go ahead and fill this gap. So right now, we're kind of sandwiched in between two important areas. We'll see what she wants to do as the week comes to the close. Last but not least, we got SMH shaking my head, the semiconductors. She's up 2.20%. Nice gap and go for SMH. On Friday, we gapped below the 20-period moving average, but today, we fought back above and closed candles above. So now, we're back above all the moving averages. The trend is your friend. Next destination is going to be this recent breakdown candle high, and then she's going to want to work towards making new all-time highs. It's a stone's throw away from this breakdown candle high. But it's important to mention that we have a gap down here at 283.95, so she could go back for a retest and want to fill that gap. You also have this big breakup candle low that's going to coincide with the 50-period moving average. There's some unfinished business down in this area right here as well. We have a gap right here coming in at 271.54. She did not fill this gap, so that declares it unfinished business. The low right here of this candle, July 1st, comes in at 272.16. So we got some important stuff down below. Again, is this going to be a one-day wonder? Is she trying to fake out some traders, still thinking that we're extremely bullish? But in reality, maybe she wants to go back down to complete some important numbers. We'll find out sooner rather than later. Have I told you all how much I appreciate you guys? Without you guys, these videos or MSF would not be possible. That is true and accurate information. Put it on a sticky note. We're going to wrap things up for today. Thank you all so much for tuning in for another episode of Common Sense Market Analysis. I'm Mini Frost. We're going to call it for today. We'll be back ready to go in uniform for tomorrow's session, and we'll see you guys in the video later that night. Have a great rest of your day, folks, and take care.